In the early 16th century, when news spread around Europe about a mysterious fortress with huge walls which were found abandoned in an African jungle, it was immediately assumed that the walls of Great Zimbabwe represented a unique civilization which could only be traced back to some distant Asians, including Chinese and Persians, because the world was not ready to believe that the Great Zimbabwe could have been built by Africans. One of the first foreigners to see the Great Zimbabwe was a Portuguese sea captain, Vicente Pegado, in 1531. He wrote gushingly about the site that among the gold mines of the inland plains between the Limpopo and Zambezi rivers, a fortress built of stones of marvelous size, and there appears to be no mortar joining them. This edifice is almost surrounded by hills upon which are others resembling it in the fashioning of stone and the absence of mortar. And one of them is a tower more than 12 fathoms high. End of quote. So, what is so special about Great Zimbabwe, which is known as big stone houses or venerated houses in Shona, which is the language of the descendants of the people who built it? Welcome to the Sankofa Pan-African series. Please subscribe and turn on your notification buttons if you have not done so. Also, please support us by pledging a token amount to this channel through Patreon so that we can continue to bring you videos like this one. No amount you pledge is too small. Thank you. Great Zimbabwe is a beautiful blend of man-made and natural beauty. It comprises intricately built structures located in the stunning Mutirikiwi Valley. It is believed that Great Zimbabwe was built around the 11th century and that at its peak, which was between the 11th and 14th centuries, it was the capital of the Great Kingdom of Zimbabwe. The kingdom prospered until around the mid-15th century. At its peak, it is believed that thousands of people lived in the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. About 200 to 300 members of the elite classes of the kingdom are thought to have actually lived inside the massive stone buildings, whose ruins remain there today. The buildings of the capital city were made of granite walls, decorated with turrets, towers, decorations, and beautifully sculpted stairways. Some of the most notable of the buildings in the city were in the form of wide and tall enclosures that were crafted with hundreds of pieces of professionally sliced granite blocks laid on each other without any mortar to hold the blocks together. The perimeter columns were decorated with soapstone sculptures of silhouetted birds with human lips and 5-fingered feet. Over 4,000 gold and 500 copper mines have been found close to the site of the great city. This has led researchers to conclude that for about 3 centuries, 40% of all the gold mined in the world came from the area. Thousands of necklaces made of gold chains have also been discovered among the ruins of Great Zimbabwe. Now, the prosperity of Great Zimbabwe came from its position, which is between the gold producing regions of the area and the ports on the Mozambique coast. This allowed it to become the center of a wide commercial and trading network. The main items of trade were gold, ivory, copper, tin, and cattle. There have also been items such as glassware from Syria, coins from Kilwa, as well as various Persian and Chinese ceramics found in the ruins, which indicate that the kingdom traded internationally. The ruins are divided into three main architectural zones: the hill complex, the great enclosure, and the valley complex. The hill complex, which is the oldest, is believed to have been occupied until the 13th century. It is believed to have been the spiritual and religious center of the city. The ruins of the hill complex cover an area of about 100 by 45 meters. The hill complex includes a huge boulder which is shaped like the Zimbabwean bird, from where the king is believed to have presided over major functions and rituals, such as the judgment of criminals, the appeasing of ancestors, and the sacrifices to the gods. The sacrifices were placed over an elevated platform below the king's throne, where animals like oxen were burnt in offering. If the smoke went straight up, the ancestors were believed to have accepted the sacrifice. If the smoke went, it is believed that offering was not accepted by the ancestors if the smoke did not go straight up, and if the path of the smoke was crooked, and that it meant that the ancestors were unhappy, and so another sacrifice had to be made. Another complex, the Great Enclosure, lies to the south of the hill complex. The Great Enclosure is believed to have been occupied from the 13th to the 15th centuries. It is another spectacular monument made out of cut granite blocks. Now, it is circular in shape with an outer wall which is about 5 meters thick. The Great Enclosure occupies about 250 meters and is 11 meters tall. It is the largest ancient structure in sub-Saharan Africa. Its architecture is most remarkable because it has no sharp angles. When viewed from the sky, it has been described as a giant gray bracelet. Inside its thick wall, there is a narrow passage leading to a tower shaped like a cone, which researchers speculate could have been used to store grain. The third section of the ruin is the valley complex, which is a series of brick structures. The bricks were made out of earth and mud. It is believed that they were dwelling houses and that many of them were scattered throughout the valley where people lived up until the 16th century. It is also believed that these houses were occupied by goldsmiths, potters, weavers, blacksmiths, stonemasons, as well as other craft people and artisans. The stonemasons were particularly skillful at splitting granite, which was used to construct structures like the hill complex. So they would heat large granite rocks in a fire before tossing water on the red hot rocks. Now, the impact of the cold water would then crack the granite along fractured planes into brick-shaped pieces that could be stacked without the need for mortar to secure them. Millions upon millions of these pieces were produced in the plains below and then hauled uphill as the city constantly expanded. The ruin is interlaced with a sophisticated, centuries-old drainage system which still works. The drainage system funneled water outside the houses and enclosures down into the valleys. Now, the reason why this magnificent city went into decline is still subject to research. One reason preferred is that there might have been some kind of food shortage, which led the people to move in search of greener pastures. Unfortunately, what is left of the ruins of Great Zimbabwe are only a shell of the beautiful city that attracted so much attention when it was first discovered by Europeans. This is because of the frenzied plundering of the site by European treasure hunters in search of artifacts that were carted away to museums throughout Europe, America, and South Africa. As in the case of the ancient structures found in places like Egypt, it was immediately assumed that the Great Zimbabwe was not something that was conceived and built by Africans. Some, like the racist German Karl Mauch, who visited the ruins in 1871, wrote condescendingly that, and I quote, that I do not think that I am far wrong if I suppose that the ruin of the city is a copy of Solomon's temple on Mount Moriah. The building is a copy of the palace where the Queen of Sheba lived during her visit to Solomon, and only a civilized nation must have once lived here. End of quote. Other European writers also believing that Africans did not have the capacity to build anything of significance, like the Great Zimbabwe, suggested that it was built by Portuguese travelers or Arabs or Chinese or Persians. Another crazy was that the site, another crazy theory was that the site could have been the work of a Southern African tribe of ancient Jewish heritage that nobody has ever heard anything about. Others even went as far as saying they might have been built by aliens. However, in 1905, the British archaeologist David Randall McIver put to rest all the spurious speculations about who built Great Zimbabwe when he concluded that the ruins were built by local African Bantu peoples. His findings were later confirmed by another British archaeologist, Gertrude Catton Thompson, in 1929. Unfortunately, the ruins have been damaged over the past 2 centuries. Most of the damage was caused, of course, by a British journalist, Richard Nicklin Hall, who was appointed by the British South Africa Company in 1902 to represent their interest as curator of Great Zimbabwe. Nicklin Hall ended up destroying a significant part of the site under the pretext that he was removing what he called the filth and decadence of the Kafir occupation. By Kafir, of course, he meant Africans. Also, in 1890, the British Cecil Rhodes, collaborating with the British Association of Science, financed archaeologist James Theodore Bent, who was sent to the Great Zimbabwe with the sole purpose of proving that the Great Zimbabwean civilization was not built by local Africans. Up until 1979, the government of Ian Smith, who was Prime Minister of Southern Rhodesia, which is now the country of Zimbabwe, continued the colonial distortion of the origin of Great Zimbabwe in official guidebooks, which showed images of Africans bowing down to the foreigners who had allegedly built Great Zimbabwe. The extent to which these colonizers would go in order to deny, the achievement of Africans is just limitless. All of that nonsense changed in 1980 when Robert Mugabe became the first democratically elected Prime Minister of Zimbabwe at independence. The name Rhodesia was dropped and Zimbabwe was adopted as the name of the newly independent country in honor of the great Zimbabwean civilization. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sankofa Pan-African series channel. Like our videos and please share them with your contacts.